Congressman Pocan, you're with us?
Yeah, I'm here, Tom.
Oh, great, great. Okay. Boy, there's a lot going on. I noticed that the Progressive Caucus is having an event this morning, of course, it wasn't covered by MSNBC or CNN, which makes me crazy. If you know, three Tea Partiers or cokeheads or what do they call themselves now, Freedom Caucus people, were doing the same thing, it would have been all over the news. Tell us about it.
Well, this was Good Jobs Nation, a big rally around $15 minimum wage and a union, as well as some of the other issues affecting working Americans. But it was not just the Congressional Progressive Caucus, Keith Ellison, Raul Grijalva, myself, but it was also Chuck Schumer and Bernie Sanders and Senator Patty Murray. So there are a lot of folks there, and you're right. We've had this conversation with your listeners before. If they don't cover it, people wouldn't know that we're doing something. But it was a really good press conference about next week. There's going to be a bill introduced, a mainstream bill by Democrats to raise the minimum wage to $15. And right now, making $15,000 a year, making $7.25 an hour, you shouldn't have to live in poverty by working full time. It's got to go up. And that was a rally we had this morning, and a great attendance. And we're going to do everything we can to address those issues.
Yeah, and to the extent that Republicans want to get people off Medicaid, here's how you do it. You pay them more so they no longer qualify for it.
I'll tell you, Paul Wellstone, I'm a big fan of Paul Wellstone, the former senator from Minnesota. He's got that line that I think we should all use very often, which is, we all do better when we all do better. It's amazingly simple, but it's also amazingly true. And, if more people make $15 an hour as opposed to $7.25 an hour, what that does for the economy, and I'm a small business owner for nearly 3 decades. I know you're a small business owner.
Yep.
It is tremendous, right? More people will go out and buy sofas and go to restaurants and go bowling and doing things that they can now afford to do. And that puts money into the economy so you can hire more workers, and it lifts all boats, as opposed to if you give the tax cuts that we've seen this week introduced by the GOP in the Congress and President Trump. They want to lower taxes for the wealthiest in this country, but after buying a couple sofas, you really can't buy many more. And those big tax cuts aren't going to be seeing the same ripple effects in the economy. So, raising the minimum wage is one of the very best ways to get the economy up and going.
Yeah. I should add, by the way, Congressman Pocan is with us for the hour, taking your calls. We seem to be doing this regularly on Wednesdays at noon, which is working out great for us. I hope it is for you.
Yeah.
And we'll be taking calls. I noticed that the president is rolling out a proposed drop in the income tax rate for corporations from 35%. The OECD average, this is the Organization of Economic and I forget what it stands for, but Organization for Economic and whatever, that it's 23%. That's the average of all the developed countries in the world. And, a lot of people were expecting 25%. I think the Republicans themselves were proposing 20 or 25%. But
20%.
Also he wants to apply it to pass-through income, which I'm assuming would be like your small business and my small business. But, I'm guessing you run your business like I do mine. I mean, you take whatever's left over, basically. And, some years you have a good year and some years you don't. But you make sure your employees are paid in a really steady way. But the people who will really benefit from this, some giant corporations, I understand, I may be wrong, but I believe that large parts of Coke Industries, large parts of the Coke empire are pass-through entities, or LLCs.
I think so, yeah.
And not just that. A lot of big companies do this if they're not publicly traded, if they're privately held. So the principal beneficiaries of this will be the top 1%, will they not?
Oh, absolutely. So President Trump has proposed a rate of 15%. The House Republicans 20% for the corporate tax rate. And yet, if you look at particulars in both of these plans, the only people who continually get, I was going to use a word I'm not going to use, who get not any benefit are the middle class families and those aspiring to be in the middle class. And it's just amazing. Here's a guy who came to, Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania and Ohio, promising to do something for workers. Every promise he's made around trade, he hasn't lived up to. When he said he's going to make people buy U.S. goods, he allowed, imported steel on the pipeline. He himself is still a complete hypocrite on his own goods. But then you see a tax plan that's not just for corporations and the wealthy. But you're right, the wealthiest, the smallest percent of people in this country are going to get the greatest gains, and the rest of us are going to get, a few crumbs, if that, left over. And it's amazing that they put out such a brazen plan without at least offering something for the middle class.
Yeah, it seems to me that this is why Paul Ryan was giddy this morning on television. The Republicans, who are largely bankrolled by billionaires, are just, they're in Fat City around this. Anything else that you wanted to share about what's going on in Congress or that's on your mind while you and I are talking? And then we'll hit a break and we'll pick up calls from our listeners right after that.
Yeah, I think the other thing, and we've heard from a lot of folks through social media and in the office, is this current, the most recent version, evolving version of a Republican proposal on healthcare exempts members of Congress. And, it's so funny because I think, last time when we did the Affordable Care Act, their way of holding the hammer to us was making sure that we're the only people in the country mandated to be on the bill. Now that they're taking away all the benefits and making a really crappy healthcare bill that they're going to give instead of what we have with the Affordable Care Act, they're exempting themselves so they don't have to get crappy care, just everybody else in the country. And I think that's pretty amazing, and I think that's definitely coming up in a lot of conversations.
Yeah, and just for clarification, they're actually not proposing literally everybody in the country. What they're proposing is that individual states can set their own standards and ignore the standards that are established by Obamacare, like pre-existing conditions, and you can't throw people off the policy when they get sick and all this kind of stuff. So probably it's just going to screw the people in the red states. Do I have that right?
Yeah, likely, but also you're going to empower every special interest in every state to lobby their state legislatures to make it harder for people to get health care. So right. It's a great employment act for lobbyists.
Yeah, there you go. And there's no shortage of those, let me tell you. And let's pick up some phone calls here. Kathy, watching Free Speech TV on Dish Network in Etna, Wyoming. Hey, Kathy, what's up?
Hi, Representative Pocan. I heard Bernie Sanders yesterday announcing that he's going to push for this minimum wage hike of $15 an hour to go into effect by the year 2024. And I must say that disappointed me tremendously. We need it now, and it needs to be more than 15 in all honesty, but at least 15 now, not 8 years from now.
Yeah, so Kathy, what this does is this starts to increase it at various levels, because one of the problems is right now with Congress, in case you haven't noticed, we don't get much done, especially since 2010, and to have something continually coming back to Congress will continue to provide these long legs. So what this bill is intended to do is to keep ratcheting up to that point, to that figure. But the good news is, this is now a mainstream bill. It's not a bill coming out of the Progressive Caucus. This is supported by Chuck Schumer and the Senate Democrats and a large number of the House Democrats. And we've got support that, quite honestly, when we went to 1010, my first session, 2 sessions ago, then we got to $12. The fact that we're at 15 in 3 sessions consecutively shows me that we're making good progress.
Step by step. Monty in Blue River, Oregon, watching Free Speech TV. Hey, Monty, you're on with Congressman Pocan.
Please enlighten the public on the stupidity of building a fence along the Rio Grande River. Are they going to put it in the middle of the river? Are they going to put the fence on the Mexican side? That ought to be explained, enlighten the public on that, please.
Oh, boy, Monty, for me to try to explain Donald Trump, you're asking me a lot. This was his campaign promise, right? He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. He just threw out he was going to put a wall up, and a lot of people went, oh, yeah. And, they voted for him. And that's why he's got that little board in his office that says, build the wall. It doesn't matter what the particulars are. He just has to check that like he had to check repealing Obamacare. You're right. It's totally impractical. It's not going to solve anything. There's not a problem that exists. I noticed he's moved his rhetoric, Monty, from it's not about immigration. Now it's about drugs. And I forgot the other issue he had, but he's got a few other
trafficking.
Human trafficking. That's right. Suddenly,
he said it's worse than it's ever been. Somehow he forgot about slavery.
Well, at least. I won't even say it. This is the guy who is not especially credible when it comes to a lot of these issues. And, for him to now make that the reason for the wall, just because he wants to get a wall, it looks like they're backing off the funding in this continuing resolution, Tom, that hopefully will keep government open after this week. But the wall is a completely silly, stupid idea that's more of a campaign promise than any kind of a practical solution.
Yeah, and it seems that the majority of property owners down there don't like this. So they're talking about taking away people's property by eminent domain, aren't they?
Oh yeah, and the whole thing is a mess. Especially the
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm sorry, the music has started, which always suppresses the YouTube, or excuse me, the Skype. We'll be right back with Congressman Mark Pocan right after this.